I'm Tim McHenry. Welcome to the Rubin Museum of Art's Mandala Lab. At the Rubin, we draw inspiration from Himalayan art. This particular mandala, the Vairochana mandala, is one that helps the practitioner transform unruly, afflictive emotions into wisdoms. The mandala in the painting is also set in a park of sorts, a sort of garden of distractions. And here in the Donica Park we have fountains, carousels, but here you also have to let your vanity behind before you enter the lab. Psychologists sometimes like to describe our minds as a house holding many chambers, and a mandala is a bit like that, a floor plan for our state of mind. A mandala starts out divided into 4 chambers, pointing to the cardinal directions, with a main circular room at the center. And drawn from the extraordinary roster of speakers at the Wellbeing Summit, we've been able to choose who we'd like to have on this journey of the Mandala Lab with us this afternoon. And we're very happy to say that the humanitarian and journalist Zainab Salbi and the neuroscientist Dr. Richie Davidson are going to join us. In Pride, Zainab has to choose one of these states of mind which places her on either a higher plane or a lower plane than other people. Arrogance, entitlement, gloating, or inferiority. In each room, you're asked to use a particular sense, and here it's really sound. The sound of a chip falling on the accumulated other chips that previous visitors have contributed.
So this is the part of the mandala that is about pride. And from a psychological and a Buddhist perspective, pride, the way we understand it, is really about self-importance. As we see here, it can be expressed in many different ways: arrogance, entitlement, gloating. Inferiority is not what we typically think of as being associated with pride, but it's kind of a negative pride. It's attaching too much importance to the negative aspects of self. So it still has the same attribute of attaching excessive importance. And so the liberation from this really comes from insight into the nature of the self itself. And having the insight that the self is really not substantial. And when we can directly experience that, then all of these qualities that are associated with pride begin to loosen their grip gradually.
Very interesting. I mean, it reminds me, I did a silence retreat once, and I had a lot of issues: fear, shame, embarrassment, the whole thing. And then, after 4 days of just meditating in silence, there was an experience where I felt like there's a separation between all these emotions and my soul. My soul was free of all of it.
Right, totally.
It had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And the person of me was attached to the fear and embarrassment and shame and anger and all of these things. And
the soul is pure and liberated.
And free.
Totally free.
Yeah. Interesting. It's just the question becomes staying in that state of mind.
Yes, exactly.
It takes a lot of discipline to stay in that state of mind.
Sometimes we might say that that I'm proud, as if it were all of me. What does it mean to say something like, I am proud? Is it every pore in our body, every feature of our mind? And when we begin to ask that kind of question, it loosens it up a little bit.
I love this, and it becomes in our awareness and our choices of what do we do with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I have to make a choice.
You do. So please pick a token.
Scary. I'm very vulnerable, by the way, to say.
I'll pick one too to accompany you.
Thank
because,
you.
I definitely have one that is relevant for my own.
Well,
stuff.
I do. I'm going to put it. Arrogance.
And mine is the same.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Very important one.
Both Zainab and Richie have freed themselves just a little from how they see themselves reflected. The shadow has been lifted just a little by the self-acknowledgement. We are not so much the mountain we thought we were. Step back and See that we are part of a bigger landscape. We are all on a level plane. And so the first step is taken in moving from the affliction of the egocentric pride to the wisdom of equality. In this room, we explore attachment in the form of the memories we retain and how they influence our perception of the world. And to do that, we use the sense of smell. Here, 6 artists from around the world were invited to tell us a scent, an odor. Zainab will smell the scent when she sits down, when she presses this button.
Six contemporary artists chose scents that elicit an emotional reaction in them. You will have a chance to identify the emotions you attach to the scent. See how your reactions compare to others as you try each one. Each station features one unique artist selected scent for you to experience. Okay, start.
I don't remember exactly when I smelled cigarettes for the first time, but I think it was due to my Uncle Alan, who was a chain smoker. When we were little kids, Uncle Alan came back from the war. Something had happened to him during the war in France, they said. He couldn't stop crying. They didn't call it PTSD yet. They just said, "Go home to your family." So he came to live with our family, and he stayed in our attic, and he screamed for 3 years, and he smoked. He smoked all the time, and the smoke filled our house. It hung in thick clouds. You could see them drifting around the rooms in the sunlight. At night, I was always afraid the house was on fire and wondering if I could escape if that happened. What could make him scream like that for so long? I tried to imagine what he might have seen. After 3 years, Uncle Alan finally stopped screaming. He left and got a job and started a family. He became what we called happy. But he smoked for the rest of his life, and the smell of smoke stayed in the house for what seemed like years. When I finally learned to smoke, it wasn't so much about pleasure as about a certain kind of melancholy.
So beautiful. Truly. It was amazing.
How was it?
You know, it was emotional, but not because the smell, it was of smoke, and so it brought me to my childhood, which was actually my parents' parties. And they were smoking all the time, but it was an association with laughter and joy, and so it's like I was intrigued by the smell, right? I'm not a smoker, so I'm not necessarily, I like smoke, but it's like intrigue, but it brought that. Then I heard the artist's expression of why she chose that smell, and it was a very sad story. It was a story of her uncle who came from the war and was traumatized and smoked for years, which made me very emotional to hear that story, but it was very intriguing how that same smell, for me had a positive story behind it.
Yes.
And for her, it had a very sad story behind it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so interesting. It was similar for me in certain ways. The smell was the smell of fresh laundry, which I correctly identified, and I do have associations to that smell in my own life of kind of cleanliness, orderliness.
Yeah, makes sense.
I can just visualize freshly folded laundry, so there's a kind of sense of order. But all of this underscores the fact that the same smell can produce completely different and in many cases divergent responses among people. And so what is really so interesting is what each person brings to this encounter. And so it's not as if a smell will elicit the same reaction. It's a very different reaction. And this is the part of the mandala that is about attachment. And emotions for us can really be great sources of attachment, because we tend to desire those things that are pleasurable, and we push away those things that are painful. And so those reactions are so basic. And what we know is that both the kinds of things that will cause pleasure and the kinds of things that will cause pain are always changing.
Very interesting.
And so there's nothing that really is permanent.
I have a question. Can one free themselves from the attachment that is triggered by smell? We talked about awareness can free us from the concept, let's say, any emotions, right? But smell is such a...
Basic.
It's like basic, it's interesting, it's almost...
Primal.
Primal, right? Yeah. Can we free ourselves from the memory of what that smell triggers in us?
It's not so much freeing ourselves from the memory. I think the memory will always be there.
Yeah.
I think the freedom comes from being hijacked, if you will, by these emotions. So the memory will be there, the emotions can also be there, but it's the difference between being in the river, where you're just in this turbulent river, versus being on the bank of the river and just watching the river.
Completely, I get it.
Both realized that they had a very different emotional reaction to the sense and personal memories that the artists had chosen to tell. Becoming aware that these different ways of perceiving the world exist, and making room for that diversity, moves us from attachment to our own views and towards the more empathetic wisdom of discernment. The next room is facing north, and this key green section aims to assist the visitor in recognizing how to translate disruptive energies generated by feelings of jealousy and envy, and it does this by utilizing the tool we humans all have in common, our breath. The idea here is that Zainab and Richie will be matching their breathing pattern to the pulse of the light.
So this was really cool, and there is some great science that has been done that pertains to this. And it really has to do with the entrainment of biological or physiological rhythms. And the origins of this work came from research looking at mother-infant interaction and looking at the synchrony between a mom and her baby. The synchrony in certain patterns of movement, in breathing patterns. And research suggests that the entrainment, where the rhythms become synchronized between two or among more people, is a very important substrate of empathy. And it very much allows people, if you will, to be on the same wavelength, literally. And so this is a strategy which I think can actually be very practically useful in the world. In fact, I was at a meeting not too long ago where we were all wearing a device to measure our breathing, and this was a group of about 12 people, and all our breathing rates were superimposed on the screen And then we came into entrainment with each other, and we can feel it.
Wow.
It was really quite palpable.
So if we only breathe with each other,
Exactly.
right, we can then synchronize our energy together. Wow, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
The disruptive antisocial feelings of envy and jealousy are disrupted by a simple exercise: breathing in concert with strangers. By breathing as one body, divisiveness has no room, and we can experience the wisdom of accomplishment which comes about in the green chamber, marking not green for envy, but the green of collective growth. So Zainab has experienced the wisdom of accomplishment and feeling at one with others in the previous chamber. And this is now going to be tested in the chamber of the East, where anger is transformed to mirror-like wisdom. And here you can see we've got the original mirror, a water surface above which hang extraordinary gongs of different sizes and different pitches, chosen by 8 different musicians from around the world. Zainab is going to think of something that makes her angry. She wants to be able to convert that energy into something else. And so that is how we move from the galvanizing energy of anger into a place of greater clarity, mirror-like wisdom.
I love, truly. Truly. Water diffuses the anger.
In each of the chambers so far, Zainab has come to realize that it can take just as much energy to exercise wisdom as it does to channel these ingrained emotional states. In the blue chamber of the mandala, then, the impetuosity and vital energy of her anger is converted to patience and growing clarity of mirror-like wisdom.
Human beings are endowed with this extraordinary capacity for this rich tapestry of emotion. And the emotion is energetic. And what is really important for wisdom and for transformation is the capacity to take the energy from these emotions and use that energy constructively. In this exhibit, in the anger chamber, we see the gongs going down into the water and dissipate slowly over time. This is a beautiful metaphor for patience and for the capacity for emotions to subside. That capacity to recover is an attribute of resilience and is something that is really key to wisdom.
The final transformative experience of the mandala, here at the center, is to overcome ignorance, so that the wisdom which sees things as they truly are might dawn in us like a pure light filling space. There's a sense of a complete circle. A complete circle has no beginning and has no end. This afternoon in the Mandala Lab, Zainab and Richie have found themselves move a little closer to the center from the corners they once inhabited. And they invite you to the Mandala Lab so that you, too, might glimpse the completeness that comes of seeing things as they are.